In this video, we're going to talk about solving radical equations. One thing to notice or to note is that the inverse of a radical is raising something to the index's power. Okay, so for example, if you have the square root of x, to get rid of the square root, you square it. Okay, so the square root of x squared is just x. Same thing with the cube root. If you have a cube root of x, to get rid of the cube root, you cube it. And so that will still give you x. In the opposite direction, if you want to get rid of a square, you take a square root. So the square root of x squared is x, but in this case, since we are taking a square root, we have to put a plus or minus. Okay, if you take a square root, you actually perform the square root operation, you have to put a plus or minus. Same thing with a cube root, except with a cube root, we do not need a plus or minus. So the cube root of x cubed is just x. Another thing I want to mention is that we can actually write radical expressions as rational exponents. So x to the 1/2 is the same as the square root of x. X to the 1/3 is the same as the cube root of x. So there is this property that says x to the m over n. The denominator of your fraction, that is your index. The numerator of your fraction is the power of your radicand inside. Okay, we will be talking about that a little bit later on. So the steps to solve a radical equation. First thing you need to do is you need to isolate the radical. If there are numbers around it, you have to perform those inverse operations to get rid of those numbers. Then perform the inverse operation to eliminate the radical. If you have a square root, you have to square both sides of your equation. If you have a cube root, you have to cube both sides of your equation. Then you will solve the remaining equation, and you always want to check for extraneous solutions. Remember, extraneous solutions are extra solutions. They do not solve the original equation. So we're going to start off with a simple one. The square root of x plus 5 is equal to 12. First step, get the radical by itself. So we have to eliminate the 5. So we can subtract 5 from both sides. We will get the square root of x is equal to 7. Then to get rid of a square root, you square both sides of your equation. Okay, those will cancel. You're left with x, and 7 squared is 49. Then you gotta check. Check your answer. So the square root of 49 plus 5, does that equal 12? The square root of 49 is 7, plus 5 is 12. So 12 does equal 12. This is my answer. Let's look at number 2. We have 3 minus the cube root of m is equal to 0. So again, we have to isolate your radical. So let's get rid of the 3 first. We have negative 4th root of m is equal to negative 3. I do have to get rid of that negative in front of that 4th root, so I can divide by negative 1 on both sides. So I will get the 4th root of m is equal to 3. To get rid of your 4th root, you raise it to the 4th power, and you do this on both sides. So m is going to equal, well, 3 to the 4th is 81. Check your answer. 3 minus the 4th root of 81, does that equal 0? Well, the 4th root of 81 is 3, so 3 minus 3 equals 0. It does work. That is your answer. Let's look at number 3. We have the square root of 6w minus 5 plus 10 is equal to 3. Isolate your radical. So get rid of the 10. We will get the square root of 6w minus 5 is equal to negative 7. Then we have to get rid of the square root, so we have to square both sides. So 6w minus 5 is going to equal 49. Then solve your resulting equation. Add 5 to both sides. 6w is going to equal 54. And then divide by 6. Running out of room here. We're going to get w is equal to 9. Check your answer. So the square root of 6 times 9 minus 5 plus 10, does that equal 3? So 6 times 9, 54, minus 5 is 49, plus 10 is equal to 3. So the square root of 49 is 7. 7 plus 10 is 17. That is not going to equal 3. So this is an extraneous solution. And since we have no other answers, this equation has no solution. Okay, we're going to get a little bit more complicated. We have the fourth root of 27 minus 2d is equal to the fourth root of d minus 3. So we have radicals on both sides. Luckily, they are both isolated. So all you have to do is just raise each side to the fourth power. You will get 27 minus 2d is equal to d minus 3. Then start solving your equation. So I'm going to add 2d to both sides, and I'm going to add 3. So I'm going to get all of my variables on one side. So over here I will have 3d, and then all my numbers on the other. Over here I will have 30. Divide by 3, and you will get 10. D is equal to 10. Always check. The fourth root of 27 minus 2 times 10, is that equal to the fourth root of 10 minus 3? So 27 minus 2 times 10. So 2 times 10 is 20, so you will get 27 minus 20, which ends up being 7. 10 minus 3, also 7. That one checks out. 10 is your answer. Let's look at number 5. I have the square root of 12 minus a plus 7a is equal to 8a. So we have to isolate our radical. I'm doing this one in a different color because I have some numbers kind of everywhere right now. So I have the square root of 12 minus a is equal to 8a minus 7a is just 1a. Our radical is isolated, now we can square it. We will get 12 minus a is equal to a squared. Anytime you have a variable squared, you gotta think about factoring. So get everything on one side of your equation. So I'm gonna move all of this stuff over here. So I'm gonna add a and subtract 12. So I will get 0 is equal to a squared plus a minus 12. Now think about factoring. Two numbers that will multiply to negative 12 but add to a positive 1. Okay, your numbers are going to be a plus 4 and a minus 3. If you set each of those equal to 0 and solve, minus 3, you will get a is equal to negative 4 and a is equal to 3. You always want to double check your answer. So I'm going to check over here, and you have to check both. So the square root of 12 minus, I'm going to do 3 first, plus 7 times 3 is equal to 8 times 3. So 12 minus 3 is 9. So I have the square root of 9 plus 7 times 3 is 21. 8 times 3 is 24. So square root of 9 is 3. 3 plus 21 does equal 24. So 3 is one of our answers. You got to check the other one. So let's plug in negative 4. So the square root of 12 minus negative 4 plus 7 times negative 4 is equal to 8 times negative 4. Well, 12 minus negative 4 ends up being 12 plus 4, which is 16. 7 times negative 4 is minus 28, is equal to 8 times negative 4 is negative 32. So square root of 16 is 4, minus 28, does that equal negative 32? No, it does not. Okay, so a minus 4 is not an answer. It's an extraneous solution. Now let's look at number 6 here. I'm going to kind of break up my whiteboard here. Okay, so this is where I was talking about the rational exponents. If I have something raised to the 1/3 power, that's the same as saying the cube root of 7p minus 1 plus 11 is equal to 7. Okay, so just recognize that your denominator in your fraction, that will tell you the index of your radical. But the same steps apply. So subtract 11, get the radical by itself. Cube root of 7p minus 1, 7 minus 11 is negative 4. And then we are going to cube both sides. So 7p minus 1, negative 4 cubed is negative 64. Add 1 to both sides. It's going to equal negative 63, and then divide by 7. So p is going to equal negative 9. And whenever you check this, I don't have room to check it right now, but whenever you check it, it does work out. That's how you solve radical equations.